Kia ora koutou katoa. Last Sunday I made some comments about the values of Jesus. In short, that compassion was his guiding value. And compassion, along with courage, defined for Jesus what faith was. So faith wasn't about believing a set of theological propositions or dogmas. It was a way of behaving towards others, and a vision of what a better community and world could look like. This way of behaving was blind to, or was deliberately dismissive of, the distinctions we create between people based on their age, gender, health, race, or social or political power. So whether a person sleeps in a mansion or under a motorway bridge, they are both equal in the eyes of God, both worthy of love and inclusion. People in the mansion, though, are usually accustomed to accessing what they need, when they need it, and determining who delivers it. Whereas people under the bridge do not have the same expectations. So when Jesus stops to be with and among those living under bridges, the mansion dwellers must recalculate how they understand the world, which can be discombobulating, threatening even. There was also a moral barometer back then that still lingers on. The underbridge dwellers were thought of as sinners, whereas the mansion dwellers were thought of as successful. The moral barometer, with its religious hue, suggested that God was disapproving of sinners and they needed to clean up their act. It suggested that being poor was somehow their fault or their parents'. Likewise with being sick, which often came with poverty. Both poverty and sickness were considered moral failings. And wealth and all the benefits of health and confidence that comes with wealth was a moral virtue. The wealthy were considered blessed by God. Wasn't it self-evident? If you're rich, then you must be on the side of right. The residue of this barometer, with or without the religious hue, still unfortunately and destructively hangs about today. I think Jesus had a different moral barometer altogether. Two of the things he valued can be found in our reading today, from Mark 6, 1-13. Firstly, the willingness to allow oneself to be changed. In biblical language, metanoia or repentance. This willingness to allow oneself to be changed takes courage. It involves listening to voices that one doesn't usually listen to, and voices at odds with one's own, including the voice that says, "You are worthy of love." With metanoia comes risk. Risk in modern governance parlance is something to be avoided or mitigated. But risk in the life of faith is something to be expected and embraced. There's a risk of welcoming and listening to someone we don't know, a stranger. The risk of going to a strange place to offer what we can. The risk of entertaining ideas that will cost us some of what we hold dear. Risk involves the potential for loss. There's a risk too of standing up, speaking out, potentially threatening one's career advancement or one's friendships. Risk is when that blend of compassion and courage leads us or leads a community we're a part of to take sides in the many disputes that inevitably seem to arise between those cultivating the goodwill of mansion dwellers and those trying to survive under bridges. Our integrity as a healthy community of faith is reliant on us being prepared to take risks. Secondly, cooperation. The reason Jesus felt restricted in his hometown, I'm referring here to Mark 6, 1-6, was the lack of reciprocity. Many of the so-called healing miracles of Jesus, when we read them carefully, require the recipient of the healing to cooperate with the healer. Similarly, with the constructed tale of the sending out of the 12, or in Luke 72, without bread, bag, or money, just with a staff and only one tunic. The inference in that is there needs to be cooperation between those travelling and those they visit who offer hospitality. Without the reciprocity of sharing, mission will fail. For transformative love, the heart of the Jesus message, is not something that can be imposed, but something found together in this cooperation and reciprocity, when folk meet, eat, and cooperate together. Community requires more than one person to build it. It needs the intentional adoption of the language of kindness, especially with those whom you disagree. It needs the giving of practical help with both generosity and consistency. And it needs the cooking and sharing of food, the healing that goes with hospitality, and the humour that leavens it. Such a community of mutuality and cooperation can welcome anyone to the space we call faith, even dwellers under bridges and in mansions. Blessings.